Well, welcome to my favourite time of the year, my picks for album of the year. And you know what, this year I said fuck it, we're doing a top 50. As always, this is mainly hip hop as that's what I listen to most. The further we make it down the list, the more I'll speak about the records. First 25 or so I'll just quickly rattle off. If a record you love didn't make the list, don't take it personally, it's either shit or I didn't listen to it. Nah, but in reality, I listened to well over 150 albums this year, so narrowing this down to a top 50 was borderline impossible, but here we are. Let me know in the replies your favourite album of 2023 and drop a like. Fuck it, why not just get straight into this then? In at 50th place, I've got Blue and Real Badman's collaboration Bad News. At number 49, I've got Westside Gunn's and Then You Pray For Me. A very spotty album but deserves to be here for the highs alone. At 48, I've got one of the best rap albums to come out the UK this year, with Lord Apex's The Good Fight, which actually has household names like Madlib and Freddie Gibbs in the mix. Definitely worth a listen. In 47th, I've got Cara Jackson's Why Does the Earth Give Us People to Love, a really beautifully written record. At number 46, I've got the Westside Gunn executively produced SD Knack album, Naxor Jim Duggan, which contains one of my favourite songs this year, Angel Dior.
Early morning we packaging up booty now. You wouldn't think I'm fathering rappers in Argentina.
At 45, I've got another UK project, and that is Fimi Guerrero's Immigrant, and another at 44 with Len's Legoland. At 43, I've got Drake with once again another spotty album, For All the Dogs, but a lot of great stuff on here too, and the Scary Hours Deluxe was just a great addition. A big surprise at number 42 because I've never really liked a country album before, but Zach Bryan's self-titled record is excellent and really had me in a chokehold. In 41st, I've got Daniel Caesar with possibly his best project to date, Never Enough. I mean, this album would be in the list if it was just the song Always for 1 hour straight. Into the top 40 now, I've got Mike, Wiki and The Alchemist's grimy collaboration Faith is a Rock. In 39th place, I've got the short but sweet Boys and Girls EP/album from Chuck Strangers. At number 38, I've got James Blake's latest effort, Playing Robots into Heaven, which I'm not gonna lie might be my favourite album from him so far. At 37, I've got Navy Blues Ways of Knowing, which may not be his strongest effort, but also has some of his most mature writing to date. In at number 36, I've got the banging V's album Ganga. In at 35, I've got one of the best produced hip hop albums in the underground this year, AJ Suede's Parthian Shots. At number 34, I've got this new Brent Fires album, Larger Than Life, which seems like it's gone over a lot of people's heads, but honestly is one of my favourite projects from him. In at 33, I've got one of the very best underground releases from last year, and that is Patty Honcho's jazzy and relentless blaxploitation. At number 32, I've got one of the best debut albums in recent memory, and that is The Wild Generational Curse from Ice Cold Bishop. At 31, I've got Pink Pantheress with the most earworm album of the year. These melodies on Heaven Knows are just stuck in my brain. Into the top 30 now, I've got Hotel 1105 by D2X, which is just such a soulful album and so inspiring and emotionally vulnerable. The production choice is excellent throughout as well. Definitely worth your time. At 29, I've got Struggler by Genesis Owusu, which is just a brilliant follow-up to Smiling With No Teeth. At 28, I've got Harvey Gold's As It Unfolds, which I'm pretty sure is the only album on this list that is majority instrumental, which just speaks volumes about how good it actually is. If you want hip-hop production that is electric, sometimes a bit weird, but passionate, then this album is for you. And all the guest features do incredibly well. And no, this isn't just biased because I'm actually on the album. In at 27, I've got Mick Jenkins with The Patience, which honestly is his best work in like 10 years since the release of The Waters. At 26, I've got Concept Jackson's Draft Dodger, which honestly has gone so under the radar this year due to it not being on streaming, but this is up there with the very best rap records of the year. Into the top 25 now, I've got Bakar with Halo, which is just so edgy and funky. It borders on so many different genres, from acoustic, pop, punk to soul to R&B. The songwriting instrumentals are just so charming. This is always going to be in my top 25. At 24, I've got Maxo with Debbie's Son, which is just so deeply personal and eerie at times. The instrumentals provided by the likes of The Alchemist are challenging, and Maxo's delivery borders on spoken word at points, but the atmosphere this album creates is just incredible, and tracks like Eyes on Me and Boomerang are must listens. In at number 23, I've got Larry June and the Alchemist's Great Escape, which was just on repeat for me this summer. And this album turned me from someone who wasn't a fan of Larry into a believer. It's basically 45 minutes of Larry calling you broke over these summery Alchemist instrumentals, but it just works. Tracks like 60 Days and 89 Earthquakes stand out as some of the very best of the year. In at 22nd place, I've got Z Loopers, who is just as wild and energetic as usual on Microphone Fiend. At 21, I've got Clown Cat and Unruly with Don't Go Outside. I speak about atmosphere a lot, but this album executes this kind of thing at such a high level. The production from Clown Cat and the relentless rapping from Unruly creates this uncomfortable and almost claustrophobic atmosphere, and it just goes down so well. Top 20 now, and I've got Black Thought with Glorious Game. You want to speak about someone making rapping sound effortless? That's what Black Thought does, and I can't believe he's delivering this level of project at 52 years old. It's deeply personal at times and just an incredible listen. And once again, another huge surprise for me at 19, I've got Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. I hated Sour. I thought it was weak in pretty much every department and couldn't quite understand why it got that much press and publicity. But Guts, yeah, this album slaps. Olivia's songwriting is excellent, the melodies are great, the instrumental progressions on tracks like Vampire are just magnificent. I'm in shock at how much she has progressed, and I'm shocked at how heartbreak stories of a teenage woman was somehow this captivating. Anyway, at number 18, I've got Skyzoo and the Other Guys with The Mind of a Saint. Now, this album was a strange one for me, because I haven't seen the TV show Snowfall, in which this album follows the protagonist of, but in a way, this kind of made it better, because it made the story so much more captivating due to the excellent storytelling from Skyzoo. He just paints a picture so well here and deserves a lot more praise. In at number 17, I've got one of the most abstract hip-hop albums released in 2023, and that is AJ Suede's and Rap Ferreira's What Them Dogs Don't Know They Know. I just can't get enough of this album, and it's the latest dropout of everything on this list. Firstly, Seal Tip Duff's production is so strange but so fascinating. I feel like I'm hearing new layers every time I listen to it. And then AJ Suede and Rap Ferreira trade bars with their unique cadences and deliveries, and it's just the perfect combination. It's like the perfect display of what underground hip hop has to offer. It's weird, a bit challenging, but incredible. And then just above it in 16th, I've got Earl Sweatshirts and The Alchemist's recent collaboration. This album delivered. I had incredibly high expectations, and it's a collaboration I've been waiting on for like half a decade. I think you can argue the two played it safe, but I think it works in the album's favour. Nothing too crazy, just the two doing what they do best. And I think Earl's delivery is the highlight of the entire album. Anyway, into the top 15 now, and I've got Paramore with their recent effort, This Is Why. I grew up a Paramore kid. I was obsessed with the pop punk sound, but honestly drifted away from that kind of music as I got older. Well, it's safe to say this latest effort has just dragged me right back in. Hayley Williams' songwriting here is top quality, and the album actually feels really emotional at times. It's a bit somber, calmer than their old work, but an excellent return to form. Up next at 14, I've got Maxo's Even God Has a Sense of Humour. To be honest, I thought it would be a struggle for Maxo to ever reach the heights of Little Big Man again, but this one definitely does. He speaks about tragedy and trauma, but also mainly the focus is on the redemption and growth, and that's what keeps me coming back to it. Production from the likes of Madlib, features like Pink Sifu. It's a very emotionally vulnerable album, and a bit skeletal. Like his other album in the list, it borders on spoken word, but it is written so beautifully that I just can't help but love it. At 13, I've got McKinley Dixon's beloved Paradise Jazz. I'd be lying if I said I had heard of Dixon before this year, but I'm really glad I discovered this album. The best way I can describe this album is one long build up until the final payoff, which is the final track. And that final track, it's fucking incredible. This album is calm, jazzy, conscious, but has bursts of aggression when needed on tracks like Tyler Forever. It explores his childhood trauma and his adulthood, and McKinley's delivery is just perfect. Definitely one of the best hip hop albums of 2023. And in 12th place, I've got a huge surprise for me, and that is Key Glock's Glaucoma 2. I don't know how he did it. Before this album, I thought Key Glock made okay music. You know that trap music that bumps in the car, but there's nothing too special? Well, he elevated his sound completely on this album. The 808s have been rattling in my head ever since it dropped. I don't even know how to describe it, but the album is just so punchy and has been on repeat. In 11th place, I've got Danny Brown's Quaranta. If you want to see how I really feel about this album, then be sure to check out this video. But yeah, it's just a really mature piece of work, and it's crazy to see how far Danny has came since Triple X. Into the top 10 now, and I've got a sleeper with Cascade D's Beautiful Struggle, Dangerous Freedom. Now, this album is definitely worth a listen. The raspy voice and hungry delivery is just the perfect combination alongside this vivid storytelling. He paints a picture incredibly well, and the album gets more and more introspective as it goes on. And the production behind it often has these piano keys, which is just adding this emotional layer, and it suits the storytelling so well. Yeah, I just highly recommend this one. In at number 9, I've got B. Kool-Aid's Leather Boulevard. I believe this album is the best executed album of the year, in terms of picking a sound, a concept, an atmosphere, and delivering on that concept to the highest level. This album feels like more of a radio station than it does an album, but that's what they were going for. It's so full of soul, so jazzy, so conscious at times. Songs like Sound Good and Brandy Aaliyah are executed to such a high level, I find it hard to believe at times. The production is so crisp throughout, and Pink Seafood delivers, whether it is his rapping or when he's in his melodic bag. Yeah, Leather Boulevard is definitely one of the best of the year. And moving on to number 8, I've got Arm & Hammer with We Buy Diabetic Test Strips. I want to start off by saying I don't think this is one of the better Arm & Hammer records, which I guess just shows how impeccable their catalogue is at this point. Despite it not being my favourite, it's probably the most ambitious. Just take a look at the production credits: JPEG Mafia, LP, August Fannin, and a lot more in the mix. The sound of the album is diverse, and both Elucid and Billy Woods take on any beat that was thrown at them. Yeah, just the duo doing what they do best. And in 7th place, I've got the long-awaited album Lahai from Sampha. 6 years we waited, and those years were so worth it, as this is Sampha's best work yet. The instrumental choices on this record are so perfect, the way they change and progress just suits the nature of the record so much, and Sampha's vocals on here are the best they've ever been. I think this is clearly the best R&B album of 2023. In the 6th now, I've got Jim Legacy with Homeless Pop Music. I only discovered Jim's music this year, and I was pretty much blown away instantly. This sound is one of those that I didn't know I needed until I actually heard it, and to be honest, I still don't really know how to describe it. It's pop, it's hip hop, it's R&B. I mean, on the same album, he samples Unknown T, Rihanna, Headie One, and Miley Cyrus. That's the kind of range we're talking about. Pretty much entirely self-produced too, which just makes it even more amazing. Jim's vocals throughout are ethereal and just have a lot of power behind them, but then at points on the record, like the second verse of Block Hug, he can switch it up and get really punchy and aggressive, and the replay value on this is through the roof. It's stayed in rotation all year. Now into the big 5. I've got Yusuf Days with Black Classical Music. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know the technicalities of jazz music. I have no idea, but I can tell you one thing: it sounds good. Yusuf Day's drumming is literally electrifying and so full of life. All the guest vocalists elevate this album to a whole new level, and the greatest compliment I can give this album is that the 1 hour and 15 minute runtime just flies by. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure what else to say about this apart from give it a listen. Definitely my favourite album that wasn't hip hop in 2023. And now into 4th, we've got a big hitter, and one I'm sure is at the top of most lists, and that is Scare in the Halls. Two of the most creative forces of the last 10 plus years linking up for a whole album, and yeah, blew away all my expectations. This album has some of JPEG's best and exciting and creative production to date, and the album is just hit and banger and hit and banger and hit and banger. It isn't introspective like a lot of Danny's solo work, but what it lacks in introspectiveness, it makes up for in just energy and forward thinking. And in the 3rd place, I've got the biggest rap album of the year. Utopia, to me, is borderline flawless. Get rid of Love and maybe a couple of other tracks, and it's perfect. Travis for his whole career has always been a visionary, and this album is a perfect example. While the rest of mainstream hip hop sounded dry and a bit washed out last year, Travis delivered a great experience that does feel like it's a whole different world. His rapping on here is the best it has ever been on tracks like Hyena and My Eyes. The feature choices are perfect, whether it be Westside Gun, James Blake or Tizo Touchdown. The instrumentals are spacey on tracks like My Eyes, chaotic on tracks like Hyena, and then punchy on tracks like Modern Jap. Yeah, Utopia delivered and was well worth the 5-year wait to me. Now we are into the top 2, and in second place I'm gonna have to go with Mike's Ben and Desire. Yeah, Mike did it again. I didn't think he would be able to get close to 2021's disco, but this album really gave it a run for its money. Mike's voice is as potent as ever, and he once again manages to say the absolute most with the absolute least. He paints such a picture with very few words, and the emotional potency on this album is mind-blowing. It felt like every other line I was sitting back and questioning something, and the production on here is some of Mike's best. Every layer and every loop is just perfect, and all act as their own part of every instrumental. Even the features, whether it be Earl Sweatshirt or Larry June, they all just come together to create something special. And yeah, Ben and Desire is very special. And here we go, number 1, my favourite album of the year. And yeah, there was only going to be one answer from the moment it dropped, and that is Maps by Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel. I don't feel like I need to say too much here. All I'll say is please go check out my review of it to see why I think it is the best album of 2023. It's perfect, not one single flaw, one of the best of the decade, and the perfect example of what underground hip hop has to offer. And that's it, my top 50 album of the year video. Late as always, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I highly recommend checking out all of these albums. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.